Hello and welcome to another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Patrick.
I'm Fritz.
And we're here to give you this week's reading recommendations on New Comic Book Day. For those who are both faithful watchers and regulars at the store, we moved the new release wall this week. We're still trying to figure out where everything kind of lives in our new location.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to live in it for a while to figure it out. So we're at a different angle this week because we're trying to get the new release wall behind us for our New Comic Book Day videos. All right, well, that having been said, I'm going to try to make it through. I'm fighting off a little bit of something. I don't know what it is, so if I sneeze or blow my nose, I apologize. But we usually do these in a single take, so...
Just try not to like with on the comics.
Oh, God, now you tell me. Well, speaking of which, let's go with your pick.
That sounds so insulting to my pick.
Snot Girl, right?
I do actually want to read that.
I've heard that it's really good.
I mean, it's by, I'm linking the guy's name, but the guy who did Scott Pilgrim, so it's probably good. But my pick this week is Nightwing 126.
What? When was the last time you think Nightwing was up here?
Pardon me, I swear I picked an issue from this current run sometime in the last year or so.
All right, well,
but
viewers, if you know, comment.
Yeah, but so this issue, it's part 2 of a little two-parter that it's kind of like one of those kind of like in between like stories. It kind of feels like where it's doing a bit more focus on some character stuff than like kind of the wider plot of it all. But this issue, these two issues have been about there's this kind of like vigilante within like the Bloodhaven police force that's like going after certain cops.
Yep.
And Nightwing and Commissioner Maggie Sawyer, who, if you haven't been following Nightwing for the last couple of years, moved from Metropolis to become like the new chief of police for the Bloodhaven police force, kind of like trying to like clean it up, make it like not like make it. One of the things I've always found interesting about Bloodhaven is by comparison it makes Gotham look kind of nice in terms of like at least like you got people like Gordon and Bullock and like actual like people like who care about making the city good, and then like the cops in Bloodhaven are just like, oh, these people are just awful.
Yeah,
just the worst. And like part of like she was brought in to like try and fix that, and this two-parter is kind of her having to face the fact that like it's not as easy. Like you can't just like, oh, these are like the obvious bad actors, let's fire them kind of thing. Like not everyone's going to like appear to be like who they are when it comes to this kind of stuff, and her having to kind of deal with that fact. Her just adjusting to Bloodhaven in general. She's got a new girlfriend that she's like having to like try and fit their lives together. It's very funny that her name is Katie. Never escaping your ex there. How are you, Maggie? Yeah. No, because first I'm just like, what's Batwoman doing here? It's like, oh no, different Katie. That's very funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, trying to like that, like her girlfriend's got a daughter that's like not too sure about this whole thing, is terrified of these like police robots that they recently got walking the streets, that Maggie's just like, no, they're totally going to make us safe. Ignore the fact that they're just giant death balls being run by literal animals and stuff. Yeah. And so there's that. Nightwing's trying to like track down and figure out like the mystery of like who these, like this vigilante group is. They're Captain Hollow, who I love this design, like the gas mask and the trench coat and everything.
Yeah.
And like the like how and why of like what this like character's like MO and their like why they wear what they wear and everything is like ties very neatly into this whole idea of just like how do you deal with this kind of like corruption and everything. And I don't know, I love getting to see these characters, because being a cop in Metropolis is very different to being a cop in pretty much like any other like city in the DC universe, because it's like, oh yeah, you do have like other like normal crime or stuff like supervillains and Intergang and all that, but Superman's there, so there's always just like that sense of just like someone's got our back.
Right, there's a ceiling.
Yeah. But here she doesn't have that. She doesn't have really any of the normal support group she would have had back home, and she's like really kind of like struggling with it and wanting to like try and have more of a working relationship with Nightwing, but at the same time being like, it can't just be like we have a superhero that kind of takes care of everything for us. We need to be able to like handle stuff on our own too, but also her maybe trying to figure out like, okay, but like what is the like limit on that here?
Yeah.
Because like this stuff, like she was not like really prepared for, and where they go from here, what kind of like relationship they have, what happens now with like some of the other cops, what happens with the robots that go on the street, with the mayor and everything. Very, very much kind of up in the air. Like there's no like clear-cut answers, which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Dan Watters is one of those writers where he's like announced on the book, I'm kind of like, well, I should check it out regardless of anything.
Right.
Has had a bunch of stuff up here before. His Batman Dark Patterns book continues to be great. Yeah. He's had a bunch of good indie work. He's going to be doing a new Shredder comic for the Turtles stuff over at IDW coming up later this year. Which, if we learn anything from his Destro miniseries, dude knows how to write a really good villain.
Yeah, that's right. He did Destro. Yeah. That was an amazing miniseries.
Oh, yeah. No, dude.
We still have trade paperbacks in stock, so.
Yeah. But yeah, and then, so most of the comic has, most of this current run of Nightwing, Dexter Soy has been doing the art, and Francisco Francavilla is the guest artist for the two-parter. People are probably super familiar with a lot of his stuff, like Afterlife of Archie was one that he got really big for 10, 15 years ago.
Yep.
But his, like, this two-part has kind of like a little more like noir feel to it that his style like fits absolutely perfectly. Like his use of like shadows for things is such a good mood setter. It's not even funny. But yeah, just everything about I've been enjoying this run in general. I love Waters' take on Nightwing of like, it is very much like, he does have that more like hopeful bent that like you got with kind of like the Taylor run where he's like trying to do good, but he does have that also kind of like more like angry chip on his shoulder that you got maybe more like the 90s, early 2000s, which I think Waters is doing like a really good balancing act of those two aspects of the character. And yeah, I just, frankly, the run, I should pick this run more often because I've always been enjoying it this entire time, but this recent two-parter has been really good in particular.
Yeah.
But well, this has been a little two-parter. Let's go one less. But we've got a one-shot over here.
Well,
is it a one-shot?
No, it's not.
It's a mini-series.
This is a mini.
Never mind.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll take it.
Yeah.
So I went with The Thing, number 1 mini-series with Tony Fleeks as the writer over at Marvel. So regularly makes it up here. Is often a pick of yours.
Yeah, love me some Farrell.
Yeah.
Sounds weird out of context, but
yeah. So the setup for this story is, and Thing is probably one of those characters at Marvel who has had more kind of solo adventures outside of the team book that he's part of the Fantastic Four. You should all know that. If you don't, there's tons of books here for you to start reading.
Funny enough, new issue out this week, also a very good issue.
Yeah. But so Marvel. Man, I mean, going back to the early days after the Human Torch kind of had his own little run where he was one of the most popular best-selling characters for Marvel, from kind of the 70s on through the 80s and so forth, Thing often had his own adventures or, whether it was Marvel 2-in-1 or what have you, but he's had a number of miniseries. The setup here is that somebody puts a bounty out on his head, $10 million. So there's going to be a whole bunch of people that are after him. And, excuse me. So we're jumping kind of around timeline-wise as to why this is happening. So as happens to Thing quite a bit, somebody from his past growing up on Yancey Street shows up and has a problem. Somebody that he didn't care for, but this somebody's sister is involved, and she was always nice to him. So, the guy who approaches him, his niece has gone missing, and the cops apparently aren't doing anything to help. So he enlists the Thing. Thing's not going to help him until he finds out that there's a little girl involved and that it's the daughter of this childhood acquaintance that he actually did like. So, not that Thing wouldn't have if he found out that a kid was involved, but so he goes to investigate, and the plot thickens. He runs into a supervillain who super is probably strong. He's one of those costumed characters that first showed up in the 60s and is kind of goony. But and that encounter kind of quickly spirals out of control in a way that is surprising. And then after that gets resolved and they've got kind of the next step that we're going to go to, their clue leads them to the next step showing up in the next issue. we get it revealed at the end of it who's behind all of this. Well, maybe not all of it, but at least somebody who's in the know and is most likely the person who put the bounty out. So the writing was really good, and I like. So the comic club kind of talks about reboots and particularly these like high profile legacy books for Marvel or DC, and how a writer feels the need to come in and really prove that they know. I've read a lot of the old stuff. I really get it. I'm one of you. I'm a longtime fan. And so it's clobbering time is obviously what you do with Thing. The way that Tony Fleegs handled all of that, kind of showing that he gets the Thing and the Thing's background and quirks and nuances was well done. It was more nuanced than just in your face kind of, which we get it, like you're writing comics, of course you're going to know it. So, so it was really good. I would say the art is really cool. I think two of the most difficult characters for people to do really well in the Marvel Universe are the Thing and the Hulk. And for whatever reason, people are either really good at those characters, or even some of the great artists can really struggle. All right, I'm gonna.
He almost made it.
I can't do it. All right, I'll just edit that out. But for whatever reason, the scale and like getting their faces to look right, if you draw them too human, then they look kind of weird. If the scale of the head isn't right with the body.
I've seen so many people, I'm not necessarily like saying they're bad artists by any means, but I've seen a lot of artists where for whatever reason they basically draw the Thing's head where it's just like a ball sitting on the body.
That is definitely a thing lately.
It's just like, it's so weird that it looks like that.
Yeah, and I'm guessing, maybe that's kind of where, the computer-aided drawing and stuff makes that easy to do, and I don't know. But yeah, it's an odd choice. And there's maybe one panel in here where that's kind of the case. But I wasn't really familiar with Mason. It's...
like, their art looks kind of familiar, but like...
No, is it at the back? Nope, you're going to see the reveal now. Oh, there it was.
Dun dun dun.
Oh, it must be at the front. No, it's not James Mason. I doubt anybody gets that. Oh, there we go. Justin Mason. It's inconsistent. I'm not going to say it's great. It's inconsistent. There are a couple panels where I was like, but I did enjoy it. It was fun. It's kind of slightly more on the cartoony side. Some of the proportion choices are kind of interesting. Typically with like a superhero book, they kind of enlarge the ratio of the body size versus the head, because when you draw people in actual proportion, their heads look kind of big and less muscular and dynamic and powerful. So generally speaking, you kind of up the body size a little bit. And there's a couple scenes in here where they almost get that kind of bobbleheady kind of feel. But all in all, it was a really fun book. I think it's going to be a fun mini-series. The combination of different characters that are being thrown together here already in the first issue are fun, and I'm looking forward to it. It's just not... Thing's just a cool guy to hang out with, So.
Yeah, and I think what I was thinking about before we were talking about this earlier, what I was thinking of for a Thing one-shot is later this year, there's going to be a Thing versus the Marvel Universe one-shot by Ryan North and Ed McGuinness, which... I mean, those two doing a Thing book also. It's funny how they do like always find like really good people to like work on the Thing too. Like because he's had a couple good stuff. He had a miniseries a couple years ago that like Tom Riley did the art on, which was gorgeous.
Yep. Yeah. And Ryan North is just for me anyway, cemented himself as one of those really great, fantastic.
He's very up there for me now.
Yep. All right. Well, speaking of really good writers,
and hey, involving maybe at least one member of Fantastic Four.
Yeah, one of your oft chosen authors.
Our joint pick today is Ultimates issue 12. the end of the kind of like second arc of the book. So the first arc was getting like the main team together to like, yeah, we're going to like take on like the Makers Council, and that just not going well.
It turns out it ended even more poorly than they thought that it did.
Yeah, so this second arc, we've been kind of like getting the seeded throughout so far, but this arc we find out that like the things at the end of the first arc didn't end quite exactly how maybe like everyone remembers, and we kind of get into like the how and why of that. And it's one of those things where like they definitely kind of been like seeding it even before that, like how it's going to like what exactly happened. And now that it's like kind of like being all aired out, you kind of get to see like everyone's perspectives on it. Just like, oh, like what does this mean? Like what happens now? And it's funny how you can have a book that's mostly just people in a room talking to each other and still have it be like very like tense and thrilling. And because like, I mean, you get that in shows all the time. Like there's how many shows are just like people having a conversation and you're like on the edge of your seat. It's harder to do that in like a page format like this.
Yeah.
But they're able to do it like really well here.
Yeah, Dennis Camp does a really great job with it. Brubaker's another one that writes those kinds of scenes where it's just dialogue and it's kind of happening in between the action. And you're just like, oh my gosh. So there's a kind of a recurring theme in this book where people die and come back.
Yeah.
And we get a character at the beginning of this, which it was the special, right? That one shot with Nick Fury, which that was like a year ago, wasn't it? So I'm okay talking about that?
Yeah, somewhere.
Yeah, so spoiler alert, they keep killing Nick Fury every time he betrays them, the Maker and the Maker's Council. And then they bring him back and
it's just like a constant line of LEDs.
Yeah, God, that one shot was so good. It was, where they're all, he's got this grand plan that he's executing, and they're all like, it's so fun to see, how the next Nick Fury is going to try to betray us.
Yeah.
So it starts with Nick Fury having a conversation with somebody who appears to be betraying the Ultimates.
Yeah.
And whoever this shadowy figure is, they're telling Nick Fury about this meeting.
Yeah.
And so then we're kind of watching the meeting, kind of understanding that this is being told to Nick Fury in this kind of narrative.
And so, basically the bulk of this issue is kind of like mostly like Tony and Doom kind of like airing out like, okay, like what happened? What did you do? What does this mean for the team? And like the team as a whole is kind of trying to figure like, well, what happens now? Like, what do we keep doing? What we've been doing? Like, how do we change it up? Like, what comes next? And the way it all kind of resolves is, I really like how it resolves, and like it really speaks to like how this like team functions. Like they're like, because part of this whole thing has been they're trying to kind of like build this like coalition. They're trying to find like all these disparate elements to like take down the Makers Council, or at least get like ready for when he comes out of like the bubble that he's stuck in,
which is coming up the 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months later this year.
The comic book timeline.
Yeah, so even in real time. Right. So sometime this fall is going to be things are going to get real hectic real quick for them.
And November-ish.
Yeah, but and this issue kind of brings it out of just like, so we've got all these like different things we're doing, and it's not really like working for like what we're trying to achieve in this like iteration of the team.
Yep.
So like, how do we change things up? How do we like actually like utilize our strengths to our best extent? Like, and the way they kind of like figured that out is very much in like it feels like a very organic outgrowth of like where the book has been so far.
I was going with.
Yeah. And it's also just kind of cool getting to see, because some of these characters haven't really like Luke Cage got to show up for one issue, and you get a little bit more from here. You get some characters' different opinions of each other that you really haven't gotten a whole lot of. I love like Doom the entire time is like trying to like be like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I'm smart. Don't question me. But also you can tell like he's trying to be like, listen, man, I'm trying. He's trying to like have these like, there's these two different facets of him, and like each one is like kind of like competing for like how he was still like trying to present himself.
Right, yeah, and it's almost like, so there's the crafted Doom that was created that has kind of got the stronger voice out of that, and then there's, old Reed Richards before he was broken.
Who, like, I don't think...
He's still kind of in there, but he's, like, sad.
Well, it's funny because, like, I feel like Doom as he exists now doesn't even, like, really, like, realize and understand that there's that part of him still in there. Like, he genuinely feels like he is just Doom now. Like, he doesn't, like, the part of him that is still Reed, like, doesn't even register him as being, like, a component, despite the fact that it's, like, clearly still very much an important part of this.
Yeah.
Regardless of, like, how he factors into, like, what he's doing. And the way that, like, certain characters, like, it really doesn't here feel like Tony, like, he does see that. He does, like, kind of, like, he's starting to understand, like, oh, like, I'm seeing you for, like, who you really are, not just, like, how you present yourself.
Yeah, and it's gonna be very interesting to see how much of this was orchestrated by the maker to put him in this place as this version of him. Because who knows Reed Richards better than Reed Richards, right? So, like, is this all part of the big plot? Or, the level to which the Ultimates are being used is just astonishing.
Yeah. But then it does also open up the question of just, like, you could be like, oh, is, like, how much are they being used? Or maybe they using, like, because that's always the thing when you, like, when the double cross is revealed. So, as common the trope is the double cross, there's also then the triple cross. Like, maybe something's going on with that. Like, who knows?
It doesn't look good for the Ultimates.
I mean, no,
no matter how this shakes out,
like,
it feels like they're being played.
Like, it does and it doesn't. Like, it... But to a certain extent, there's also, like, this, like, feeling of, like... Because Cap basically says it more or less at one point of just, like, we have to try regardless of, like, whether or not it's actually going to work. Like, that's... The trying is more important than the actual...
outcome?
Yeah, because, like, if we do nothing, then the worst is just going to happen anyways. At least this way.
Doom has a line along those lines too. Like, so what if you die? Like, I mean, you're basically imprisoned right now. What do you have to lose? Only your shackles. Whether you die, or it's a positive outcome, or it's a terribly negative outcome. How is it any worse than where we're at right now?
Like things are only going to get bad, and they're already bad. So, like, it's do or die time now.
Right.
Like, it's throw everything at the wall, see what sticks moment for the team. And we've gotten, like, some teases with what some of that means with some of those solicits coming up for the next couple months. And I think, like, I don't know, not to be optimistic, but I don't know, maybe they'll have a fighting chance coming up.
Well, I mean, it's comic books and they're heroes, so you'd think that they're going to make it interesting at some point in time and not just, have the maker win and clobber everybody and what have you, but we'll see. I'm interested to see how the revelation from this issue, what the kind of cascading effects are of that on the confidence of the people that are on the team, because
there's at least a couple that seem a bit more shaken about this than the others. Yeah.
In particular, I'm curious about how this is going to affect Hawkeye. I really like the Hawkeye character. I think that the Hawkeye character is super cool. But confident is definitely a characteristic of the Hawkeye character, and that could be shaken now. So we'll see how this all plays out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there's our top three. It's a good sized week this week. Yeah. What else did you have?
So surprising no one, very easily the new issue of New Gods could have been up here. Frankly, one of the most, like, gorgeous comics I've seen in a long time. Probably one of the most gorgeous comics I'll see this year. So they, for a good chunk of it, they've got a fill-in artist. Let me double check the...
Oh, right.
Yeah, I want to get the name right here because they've worked with Ram V before on a couple different things. Yeah, Felipe...
Andrade?
Yeah, they did the art on... they're one of his earlier things that they worked on a couple years back. Layla Starr over at Boom. They also did... Rare Flavors was their most recent work together,
which was fantastic.
Oh yeah, and, like, they employ even more of a, like, kind of like a, like, watercolor aesthetic here that just most of the issues, just Black Racer and Light Ray doing stuff. It's absolutely gorgeous. A couple books I flipped through, didn't actually get a chance to fully read. There's the new Superman Limited book out this week, which mostly looks like it's kind of like here's like the highlights of the life of Superman before getting like the main like thrust of what the series is going to get to be set up. But it's all done by Raphael Albuquerque on the art, so like it looks gorgeous. Like it's a very good looking retrospective. There's a new series out called RoboWolf. I'm usually not like a big fan of these kind of like retro 80s like super in your face books, but like the art on it looks really nice, and there's some fun character stuff I saw when I was looking through it. So like that definitely looks like something maybe taking a check. How about you?
Spider-Man Wolverine, little mini series happening right now. Guggenheim and Carrie Andrews, and so. If you're a fan of that kind of late 80s, early 90s Marvel, it's got kind of a Todd McFarlane kind of vibe as far as the art goes. And it's, this kind of, you're matching up two high-profile superheroes to obviously sell a lot of books. They're also doing the same with kind of matching up some of their supervillains together. So that was fun. Zatanna continues to be amazing. Yeah, there's a ton of good books this week. Yeah, just all kinds of... Oh, Absolute Flash. Flash was so good.
Absolute Grodd is maybe one of my favorite Absolute characters so far. I mean, to be fair, I love me a monkey. So you give me a cute little sci-fi monkey, I'm going to love him even more.
Yeah, all kinds of good stuff. Yeah, all right. Well, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, comment, share. Stop on into your local comic shop and pick up some comics for yourself to read. We love to hear what you think of what's out there to be read right now. Make your own recommendations in the comments. And we will be back next week with even more picks, because that's what we do around here, is read
Only
comic
thing we
books.
do around here.
Yeah. And until then, enjoy the reading.
And you, like a dear audience, you don't get to know what the actual question was about, but